Hey there everybody, welcome to Auto Bears, and it's always a good day when I can bring a new manufacturer to the channel. So everybody please give a warm welcome to Chery, where I am on the UK media launch of their 5-seater 7, but also the 7-seater Tiggo 8. Now, I know what you're thinking, yet another Chinese brand coming to the UK and Europe to kind of disrupt the flow of things. But the thing is though, the name Chery might already be a little bit familiar because we got the likes of Omoda and Jaku and they sit underneath the Chery umbrella. However, Chery as a brand themselves, well, they want to be seen as a standalone brand, so you won't go to a dealership and get Chery, Omoda and Jaku, it'll just be Chery. Now they are coming to the UK with two models. They've got the Tiggo 7, which is what I've got here, and that is a 5-seater SUV, and then they've got the larger Tiggo 8, which is a 7-seater SUV, and both of those cars can be available as full ICE or plug-in hybrids, which is what I've got here, otherwise known as the SHS, the Super Hybrid System. Now I am going to be driving both the 7 and the 8 in hybrid variants, and well, I'll let you know what the trim levels are as well, but this is the top of the range Summit. But as I haven't got too long with the cars, let's jump straight on to the styling, which I think with the Tiggo 7 is very kind of distinctive. Now I can see kind of hints of other brands in its styling, like up front we've got the big diamond grille, that's very Chery. However, the shape of it, yes, I can see hints of Audi along with the daytime running lights. However, when you look at the back of the car, I can see kind of little hints of BYD with like the Atto 2 and the Dolphin, but in a larger package. And then when you look at the Tiggo 7 in profile, it has got quite a nice kind of swoopy C-pillar design to it, so that kind of makes it recognizable as a Chery. But yeah, I do think they have come out with a nice kind of inoffensive but handsome C-segment SUV. But yes, I don't think it's as distinctive as, say, a Hyundai Tucson, for example. But you let me know what you think of the Tiggo 7's design in the comments section below. Do you like it, or do you feel it's a little bit blandtastic? But on that note, I will say, let's have a little kind of walk away from the exterior of the Tiggo 7. Like I said, I haven't got too long with the car, and also I've got to drive the Tiggo 8. But let's see what it's like on the interior. Sat in the front of the Tiggo 7, you are greeted with a very comfortable, spacious and well-equipped interior. This definitely is a very pleasant place to be. Now when it comes to getting in and out of the Tiggo 7, it is really easy because the doors open nice and wide and you have got that slightly raised seated position because this is an SUV. Now I will say that you don't have a grab handle for the driver, you've got a little case there to put your sunglasses, but you do have a grab handle for the front passenger. So if you do suffer from any kind of mobility issues, yeah, definitely have a look at the Tiggo 7 and see what you think, but just be aware you haven't got that grab handle. Then with this Summit trim, I have got electrically adjustable seats, and yeah, there's a good level of adjustment to them. However, the big surprise is I can't seem to find any adjustable lumbar support. So that's a little bit of a surprise on this type of vehicle. And then when it comes to the steering, I have got both rake and reach adjustments, so getting the perfect driving position is easy. And when it comes to interior quality, I'm actually going to say it's a big plus in here. So we've got our soft touch plastics on top of the dash, on top of the doors. We've got some leatherette here on the door cards, as well as on the side with some contrasting stitching. On the side here of the center console, so I can rest my leg against it. However, a little bit lower down, it is hard, scratchy plastic, and that is also what your leg will be leaning against. We've got some leatherette here on the dash, some piano black plastic, but also some kind of faux carbon fiber trim, which is quite shiny, but I've not found any issues when it comes to reflections, so that's a big plus. And then we have got this kind of metal effect trim here on the dash with these touch sensitive buttons, but we'll go on to them in a bit. Now I will say, if you can hear a kind of hissing noise in the background, I'll just let you know I have got ventilated seats and I am using them as, yeah, the weather is lovely today. But yeah, when it comes to kind of sitting here in the front of the Tiggo 7, first impressions are really lovely in the fact of the actual quality of the seat. It feels really nice. I think it is vegan leather, not real leather, but it does feel really lovely and it does hold a big bear like me in place. But like I said, I'd like to see a little bit of lumbar adjustment, perhaps if you want to, you know, go on a long journey and you just need that little bit of extra support. But other than that, no, this is a very lovely place to be. Cubby spaces in the Tiggo 7 seem to be pretty good. Now I've got some decent sized door pockets where I can get a medium sized bottle of drink in there, but they're not lined with any fabric, so loose items will rattle around a bit. Now as you can see, I've got a floating centre console, so down below I have got some hard scratchy plastic. I've got a little hammer as well, which is to smash the windows. So that's a nice little and unique safety feature. We don't tend to get that on other brands, but that's going to be very useful for some larger items there. Now on top here of this floating center console up front, we've got our wireless charging pad with a USB-A and USB-C charging input. Then you can see I've got a couple of cup holders, and they are side by side. I'm just going to take my can out there. I can let you know that they are rubber lined, and we have got some plastic grippers there. Sorry, it's going to move the key. So it does mean when I put my can in there, it will be held in place, which is very lovely. Then we got your center armrest, and if I press a button and open it up, it does unveil actually a bit of extra space. It is air conditioned as well, and again it is lined with rubber, which is very handy, and that's actually a decent amount of underarm storage. And then finally we have got your glove box, which I'm going to say is a little bit disappointing. There are rivals out there that have more space in the glove box, again not lined with any fabric or rubber, but there's no book pack in there, so at least you can make use of all the space that's available. So yeah, when it comes to the cubby spaces here in the Tiggo 7, they're actually not too bad. And as I mentioned earlier, you got your sunglasses case there where your grab handle would be. Now, one thing we are seeing with a number of these Chinese brands as they come into the UK is that they do have a nice mixture of kind of physical, touch sensitive and controls done via the infotainment system. Now, I will say with the Tiggo 7, I've not had a chance to kind of go through all of the buttons on here, but I have had to go with some of the ones on the center console and here on the dash. So what we have got is no physical buttons around the infotainment system, but just below, as I mentioned, we've got this kind of metal effect trim where we have got these touch sensitive buttons where we can go through dual zone climate control buttons there. So I can do the fan strength. It does bring up a display on the infotainment system, so you can actually go onto there and also adjust it and do things like front and rear demisting. You got your things like recirculation, but also your direction as well. But you do need to go onto the screen in order to change the direction. So that's something to just be aware of there. You can't seem to do it here on this kind of touch sensitive button, but you don't get any kind of haptic feedback. You might get a little tick noise, but that's about it. And when you have got the dual zone climate control up, you can go onto things like the seats, where I have got the oh, something fell on the car, where you have got the air conditioned seats there in use, and then you've got a settings one where you can do things like automatic cabin ventilation, air cleaning, things like that. But then what you need to do is just drag the screen down and it will bring you back to your previous display. And then what we have got here on the center console is we have got a big rocker for your gear selector, like another car I've driven recently, which I think was the MG ZS. You don't have a button on here to actually kind of release the gear selector. You can just rock it with free will. You just got to make sure your foot is on the brake and you can then set off. We've got a little rocker switch to go through the various drive modes. We've got a physical button for your hazard lights, a button to activate the 360 cameras, and two buttons for your hybrid system. One to be dedicated EV, where you got up to 56 miles of electric range, and then a hybrid button as well. And then there's a little rocker switch to do the volume. And then on the steering wheel, what we've got on the left-hand side is your radar-guided cruise controls, as well as a button that you can assign from the infotainment system. So like a shortcut button for things like the dual zone climate control. Oh, go away, fly. And then on the right-hand side, we've got your buttons to activate the driver data display. And then we've got your media and voice controls, so you can kind of do things like do the volume and change track. And then on the right-hand side, we have got a couple of buttons, one to open the boot and the other to open the petrol filler cap. I will say, being a plug-in, on the other side, we have got your cap for charging the car up. You've also got DC charging as well, which is very handy. And yeah, that one is just a push button in order to open. But in order to do the petrol, you've got to do the release from the inside. And then we've got buttons on the right hand side for your seat memory, and then we've got controls for the windows and mirrors, as well as your lock and unlock. So yeah, when it comes to the kind of physical touch sensitive buttons here in the cabin, I will be honest, I've not had a chance to properly use these whilst I've been driving. I've been kind of more focused on paying attention to the road and doing my review, but it does seem that these have got a nice kind of feel to them. but it is like one big panel, and it kind of just rocks as you press on it there. So it's not proper touch sensitive. It is actually a proper like button per se, but yeah, it's the touch sensitive ones here that might be a little bit fiddly to use when on the move. So just get used to their position there on the dashboard. And then finally, we've got the infotainment system and the digital dashboard display, both of which are 12.3 inches. And like other cars we're starting to see, they're both set high up on the dash and kind of linked with this single panel. Now with the infotainment system, I will say you've got Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. They are wireless as well. And in terms of the actual main system itself, it seems nice and responsive. Like I said, the dual zone climate control is down here, but when you activate it, it will bring it up onto the main screen, and you can also just tap on the little fan button at the bottom and it will bring that screen up, and you can adjust your temperature for both yourself and the passenger. You can have it in sync as well, but you can also just kind of drop that system down. You can adjust the temperature manually as well using the buttons at the bottom of the display. And then on the right hand side, we've got things like your home button, your app button, and then to activate the vehicle system. This is definitely, I think, going to be a case of setup before you set off, but it seems to be very responsive. You can kind of, oh, it needs me to turn the car on. So when we kind of go into this, we can look into all the vehicle settings. I do like the fact that the shortcut buttons here are on the right hand side, so they're closer to me, so I can adjust the headlight settings, the interior mood lighting. However, it's a bit bright for that. Driver assistance, we can go through the various menus as well, and then you can just kind of, it is a 12.3 inch display. What you have got is two little analog dials on each side, and it kind of, you can go through the menus and you can change what they show you. Now on the left hand side, it's got your speedometer, but you've also got that in the center as a digital with the little car in the center. And on the right hand side, I've got my kind of driver data information. So it's telling me things like my miles per kilowatt hour if I'm driving full electric. I've got my petrol MPG, but also my kind of petrol and electric MPG as well. I think that's how they're set out, which is actually very impressive. So as the engine by itself is 47.1 miles per gallon, but I think linked together it's actually showing me over 60. Now, we'll be honest, on the drive earlier, because I've kind of done this a bit backwards, I was getting over 80, so that's actually very impressive. So yeah, being sat here in the front of the Tiggo 7, it's a nice, comfortable place to be. I do like the perceived quality as well, and it is jam-packed full of kit. But like I said, I have got the Summit trim. And on that note, I think it's time that we leave these front seats. I will turn the ventilated seat off, so you can probably hear me a little bit more. But let's see what it's like for rear passengers. Sat in the back of the Tiggo 7, it is actually surprisingly spacious and comfortable back here, and I could actually imagine myself doing a long journey in the Tiggo 7 and arriving at my destination feeling refreshed and relaxed back here. That is actually a nice, pleasant surprise. Now, just like the front, when it comes to getting in and out of the Tiggo 7, it is really easy because of the doors opening nice and wide, and we have got your grab handles here to assist you getting in and out, plus that slightly raised seated position. Also, the door aperture itself is actually quite large, so again, making it easier to get in and out. And that'll also help when it comes to things like affixing a child seat, because we have got ISOFIX supports on the outer seats. Oh, don't worry about that, there are nuts in that tree and they're dropping on. And we have got a couple of ISOFIX bars that are easy to get to because you just got to navigate between the cushions. Now, I will say that driver's seat is set to my driving position. I'm 5'7" tall and 5'7" wide, and as you can see, I've got a good amount of knee room. I can just about tuck my feet underneath the driver's seat, and it is set to its lowest position. And headroom is actually not too bad for my height, even with that sunroof. And I do think a couple of 6-footers would be comfortable in the back of the Tiggo 7. I think 3 adults at a push, as long as they're not as broad as me. There's hardly any transmission tunnel coming through the floor, so you don't have to kind of stretch your legs out, but it should be absolutely fine for 3 kids back here. Then when it comes to cubby spaces, I'm going to say it's not too bad. We've got some okay sized door pockets. Again, you can get a medium sized bottle of drink in there. Oh, I did see that one bump on the door. We have got your aeroplane style pockets on the backs of the front seats. We have got your centre armrest that comes down with a couple of little cup holders in there, although they're not the, careful, they're not the deepest. So just be wary if you are putting like a can of drink in there and it doesn't kind of wobble about, or perhaps a coffee cup. And then we've also got a little tray area here, which is actually rubber lined, which is perfect to put your phone in, because when it comes to features, we have got a couple of little air vents and a USB-A charging input. So that's a little bit disappointing. I'd like to see 2 of them there and perhaps USB-Cs, but you know what? I'll happily take the USB-A because we have, like I said, got a place to put our phone. And then we've got the windows, which are of a really lovely large size. Definitely a lot of light coming through. They are tinted on this car as well, and they open about 95% of the way down. Like I will actually show you. There you go. But I can just about rest my arm there, but it is just kind of, yeah, rubbing on the window. The only other thing I will say is that there is a little bit of a drop in quality because the top of the doors are hard, scratchy plastic. And I will mention you can't do anything with the seats like move the bench forward or possibly even recline them. So that's a little bit disappointing. But do you know what? The space and the comfort, I think, does make up for that. So yeah, being sat in the back here of the Tiggo 7 is surprisingly spacious and comfortable. I would just like to see a couple of little extras added to the car, like I said, with USB-Cs, and have 2 of them back here, and perhaps have the windows open all the way down. But on that note, I think it's time that we leave the rear seats and we see what the boot is like. Opening the boot of the Tiggo 7 presents you with 484 litres of space, which in this segment is actually not too bad. It's a little bit lower than some of its main rivals, and you have got cars like the Dacia Bigster, which has a class leading 677 litres. So yes, this is quite a way off some of the class best, but it is a decent amount of boot capacity. Now when you get the boot open, you are presented with a nice wide square load area. I do like the fact we've got no boot lip to navigate over, and also the boot level, I'm going to say, is not too bad. I mean, it might be a bit difficult for dogs to jump in and out of, or if you are loading any large bulky items such as a wheelchair or mobility scooter. But when it comes to features, we have got several of them back here. So we haven't got any tethering hooks, but we've got a 12-volt socket. We've got these little shopping hooks that you can pop out as well, so they're very handy. We've got one on each side. We have got a little bit of underfloor storage, and I mean a little bit, but it is actually set up for your charging cables. I don't know if you've got anything underneath that. No, we've got a little bit of extra space, but really you're going to have items kind of rolling around. So this is your main area here, and that's because we have got things like the battery and the electric motor underneath the boot floor. And then when it comes to getting the seats down, you have to do it from the side, or you can possibly just about reach from the boot area. You don't have a completely flat load area, but there is a little bit of an incline, so it does mean you can load large bulky items. However, from what I can see is that you've got nowhere to put the tonneau cover, so you will need to leave that at home. So yeah, when it comes to the actual boot capacity, yep, there are rivals in the segment that have larger boots, but it has got some nice features like for the cable stowage, but I would like to see things like tethering hooks perhaps, or an ability to kind of put your tonneau cover underneath the boot floor. But on that note, I think it's time we get the boot down on the Tiggo 7 and we see what this family SUV is like out there on the road. So once you start driving the Tiggo 7, first impressions are actually pretty positive. You can tell straight away that Chery want the Tiggo 7 to be a very comfortable family SUV. It's definitely not got that sporty feeling. It just seems to waft along. So as a result, this will be a wonderful motorway cruiser. Granted, I've only been driving for about 5 or 10 minutes, but I do get that impression. And then when it comes to visibility, I'm going to say it's pretty good. Now, because of that raised seated position, I got a wonderful commanding view of the road ahead. I can't quite judge where the front of the car is, but I do believe you get front and rear parking sensors as standard, as well as possibly a reversing camera. Now the A-pillars are quite thick and chunky, but as of yet I've not had any issues looking around them at any junctions. The wing mirrors are actually quite big. I'm actually surprised of how large they are, and I have got blind spot monitoring, so that is a plus. And then when I look over my shoulder, I do find there's a bit of a thick C-pillar there, but uniquely it kind of goes into where the boot lid is. So as a result, rear visibility, I'm going to say is okay, but it's not the largest rear screen. And I haven't really got too much of an obstruction from the rear headrests, but there is a little bit in regards to the outer seats. But yeah, first impressions, once you start driving the Tiggo 7, you can definitely feel that Chery definitely put the priority on this car being in regards to comfort rather than sportiness. And in a way, that's not a bad thing, because there's a lot of people out there that just want a nice, comfortable family SUV. Now, there are two trim levels to choose from in the Tiggo 7 range. You've got the entry-level Aspire, and then you've got this, the top-of-the-range Summit. And I'm going to be honest with you, look at the Aspire, because in terms of standard equipment, it is really well kitted out when it comes to safety, driver aids. I mean, when you move up to the Summit, that's when you get a few more of those creature comforts and those little extra luxuries. But definitely look at the Aspire first. It's about £3,000 difference between the two trim levels. So if you are looking to get this car on, say, PCP, just have a little look at those monthly figures and just see how much they change. But I will say, if you go for the Summit, oh, you're going to absolutely love it. I mean, it's got so much equipment as standard, it does put some of its rivals to shame, especially the ones that are more expensive. But yeah, that would be my recommendation. Do start with the Aspire, because it's so well kitted out as standard. And then if you just want that little bit extra, then by all means, move your way up to the Summit. Now, when it comes to powering the Tiggo 7 and 8, as I mentioned earlier, there are two versions available. A full ICE version, and then you got the plug-in hybrid, or the SHS. So when it comes to power and performance, all the facts and figures, at the time of recording, I haven't got them all, but I will put them on screen now for you so you can compare. But essentially, if you go for the full ICE version, you got a 1.6 litre turbocharged petrol engine with around 150 brake horsepower. And then if you go for the plug-in, you then get a 1.5 litre, I believe, 4-cylinder turbocharged petrol engine with the battery and electric motor, and then you have just over 200 brake horsepower. And that's basically just to kind of help out with dealing with the extra weight of that battery and electric motor. In regards to 0 to 62 times, I haven't got them, but they should be on screen now. But when it comes to this plug-in hybrid and the kind of performance I've got on offer, I've been pleasantly surprised. I've got no complaints. It doesn't feel underpowered, but then again, I am by myself in the car, just with a couple of bags of equipment. But what I am liking is that when I do put my foot down, it seems to be that the electric motor kicks in first. So again, instantaneous reaction, which is a nice, pleasant surprise. And I did experience this for the first time on the Haval Jolion Pro, because that had a really large battery and electric motor. So you always kind of got that as your kind of boost of instant acceleration. So right now, that's actually really impressive. And then you just got a little blurb from the engine. So yeah, that's something I am liking. Now, when it comes to things like economy, I am expecting probably an outlandish figure, being a plug-in hybrid, probably over 250, maybe 300 miles per gallon. But yeah, it's not. More realistically, we're going to be looking, I think, probably at 50s, maybe a little bit more. I'm looking on the screen now. So what it says is, over the last 50 kilometers, I've got three readouts here. So the first one, the battery, is telling me 29.6 miles per kilowatt hour. That's actually very good. I'm liking that. Sorry, it's saying I'm distracted. I'm just looking at the screen. Just below there, there's a little petrol gas station icon, the little petrol pump icon, and it says 68.9 miles per gallon. Now that's really impressive. And then just below there, it's got a little battery with a little kind of zigzag through it, and it says 57.7 miles per gallon. I'll take that. I'll take those two readings. I mean, of course, I'm going to look at the 68.9. That's blooming impressive. I'm really liking that. I do know if you go for the full ICE version, I do believe, I will say, going from the website and the media pack, I think there's two kind of numbers it gives you. One of them is about 33 mpg, the other is 40. I am hoping, of course, it's the larger 40, but I have experienced when I drove the Emoda 5 last year, which I believe has the same engine, that was getting around 31, 32 mpg. But again, I was on the first drive of that car. So there's a part of me that does straight away say, look at the plug-in hybrid of the Tiggo 7, because yeah, to get figures like that, I'm not complaining. I am very happy with close to 70 mpg. And I'm not driving like Miss Daisy. I've been driving on some very awkward country roads where I've been doing lots of stop-starting, and now I'm doing 60 miles per hour, and yeah, I'm absolutely happy with that. But you should have everything on screen now for you, or a little bit earlier. But in regards to those figures, I got no issues whatsoever. In regards to the acceleration, okay, there's a little bit of hesitation there, but it did pick up really nicely. And what I'll say as well is brake pedal feel, is actually very good. Just a little tap on the brakes and I felt it there. So that's one good thing. There's a nice positive feel through the brake pedal as well. So that's obviously something that's going to be very reassuring for you, especially with the fact that you've got so much in regards to kind of safety kit and features, driver convenience and driver comfort as well. Yeah, the boxes are definitely getting ticked on this Tiggo 7. So what about the Tiggo 7's ride and refinement? Well, as I said when I started driving, that you very quickly realise that the Tiggo 7 has been set up to be a very comfortable family SUV. It just wafts along. It deals with a lot of the bumps and imperfections in the road really well. I'm driving on a country lane here, which is not the smoothest. Granted, this bit is, but it's just wafting along. It's dealing with a lot of those bumps and imperfections in a really, I kind of say grown-up way. It's not kind of fidgety, it's just dealing with them and just wafting along. It's a very comfortable SUV, and I do think this would be a brilliant motorway cruiser. I will say at lower speed you can feel some of the bumps and imperfections do come through, and there's a tiny bit, and I do mean tiny, bit of fidgetiness in regards to the ride, but here at 50 miles per hour I've got no real issues at all when it comes to the ride. Like I said, it's dealing with the bumps and imperfections. Yes, you get some little vibrations coming through, but that's kind of the norm for this segment of car. I do know that the trade-off will be in the handling in regards to kind of lean and roll, but we'll talk about that in a moment. The other thing as well that I am really impressed with is the refinement. I mean, it's wafting along. Now, I'm not sure if it's the 7 or the 8, but one of these, no, it is the 7, has actually got, I don't know if it's official double glazing, but it's basically got 2 panels on the windows and also on the windscreen. So that's something I do like to help with refinement, and again, should definitely help if you are doing any long journeys. It's been really impressive. I will say there is a bit of tyre roar coming into the cabin. Now, it's not massively intrusive, but it's there. I can hear it. I can't really hear any wind noise. Nope, I can't hear any wind noise. It's just a bit of tyre roar, that's it. And if you do put your foot down, there it is. You get a bit of engine note coming into the cabin, but very quickly it dies down once the car has settled. Kind of like when you got like a CVT transmission. Don't recoil in horror. This hasn't got, I believe, a CVT. I think they call it a dedicated hybrid transmission. Something again I experienced with the Jolion Pro. But it seems to be doing a really lovely job. It's going through the gears. I've got no flappy paddles to manually change gear, nor have I got the ability to do so with the gear lever. But when it comes to that ride and refinement, I got no issues whatsoever. It's a very comfortable family SUV, and I think it will impress a lot of people out there. Now, I have got a couple of big figures for you, and they both begin with a 7. So the first one is range, and it's not regarding electric range because that's 56 miles. I'm talking overall range, because Chery say that I should be able to get with both the 7 and the 8 on a full tank up to 750 miles combined. That is massively impressive and does make me think that maybe a road trip is on the cards. Also, the other figure that begins with a 7 is warranty. 7 years and 100,000 miles. So that is massively impressive. It rivals the likes of Kia and Dacia, and it's only beaten by, well, Toyota and Lexus with their up to 10-year warranty program. But those two cars and those brands are much more expensive. So what about the Tiggo 7's handling? Well, firstly, the steering wheel is actually of a really nice size and thickness, feels lovely in my hand. I do like the quality of the leather, or possibly leatherette, that is wrapped in. That actually feels really lovely to hold on to. And like I said, when it comes to the ride, it's a very comfortable and relaxing SUV. So I am expecting the trade-off to be in the handling. And I'm gonna say, yeah, that is where the trade-off is. So it can be a little bit kind of leany in the corners. You do get that roll there. I'm just gonna go in through a little windy section now. The one thing I am noticing straight away is that there is a bit of an over assistance in the steering. It's not direct. So as a result, it does feel a little bit numb. I haven't got that kind of feedback that you would get from something like a Seat Ateca, which definitely has a more sporty feel to it. It's going to be absolutely perfect for every day, but if you're after something that's going to give you a bit more of a reward if you chuck it into the corners, this will definitely not be the car. Again, like the Ride and Refinement, this has been set up to be a hugely comfortable family SUV. So the trade-off there is in the handling. It should be absolutely fine to park. In regards to kind of weight, there's not a huge amount of weight there in the steering. And yeah, that's kind of, I would say, a little bit of a weak point to the Tiggo 7. It's just that you haven't got that full connection to the front wheels. It does feel a little bit numb, but for everyday driving, you shouldn't have any issues with it whatsoever. It should do exactly what you want to do for everyday driving. And like I said, it is going to be light enough for you to make the Tiggo 7 really easy to park. And if you do go for the Summit trim, you can press a button and you can bring up the, I think it's something like 560 or 540 degree camera, which is just absolutely nuts. So basically you got your bird's eye view, you got your 3D effect. I will say the clarity of the screen and the image is actually pretty good. It's absolutely like really kind of lovely on there. It is clear. Yes, some more kind of premium models do get a bit more in the way of clarity, but no, got no issues with that whatsoever. But yeah, like I said, when it comes to the handling, this is, I think, just a little bit of a weak area for the Tiggo 7, but for everyday driving, and I would say just for anyone just looking at the car, I don't think you're going to have any issues with it. I think if you're just after a sportier family SUV, then you will have to look elsewhere. Right, so I've just parked up, but what are my first thoughts of the Chery Tiggo 7 here on its UK media launch? Right, well, firstly, Chery are looking to make a heck of an impact in the UK with this car, and also the 8 by having, I think, one of the cheapest 7-seaters you can buy. I think possibly the Dacia Jogger is a cheaper vehicle, but what they kind of give you in return is a huge amount of metal for your money. When it comes to standard equipment, they do incredibly well. I mean, this thing is just jam-packed full of kit, and it's got some luxuries and niceties that we'll definitely appreciate, like the 360 or 540 degree cameras, the sunroof, things like that. I know on the Tiggo 8, we've got things like massaging seats, and you can actually recline them and have like a captain's chair type thing. You know, so that's what we're seeing from a lot of these Chinese brands, and having the likes of a Moda and Jaku come over with the 5, the 9, and then the J7 and the upcoming J5, they're definitely putting their foot in the door, and they're definitely getting appeal to a lot of people out there who are perhaps looking at a lot of the mainstream brands that have been dominant for so many years and kind of going, yeah, I don't want to spend that kind of money on this size car when I can get this for X amount of thousands of pounds cheaper. It's not just that as well. I mean, there's a claimed 750 miles range. That is absolutely bonkers. We got a 7-year, 100,000 mile warranty. So already Kia's got some competition, you know, and also Dacia as well, because they've got their year-on-year extended service plan on that. So yeah, when it comes to kind of first impressions, it is really positive. Now, it's not perfect. Like I said, I think the boot should be a bit bigger. I'm disappointed in the boot capacity, and I would like the ride to be tweaked as well. But other than that, no, they've definitely got something that does require, I think, pop into the dealership and just having a little look-see and just see what you think, because these Chinese brands, they're here to stay. And on that note, I think it's time we add a couple of extra seats to this car and we move on to the Tiggo 8. So now we move on to the Tiggo 8, the brand's second model, launched in the UK and Europe, and it is their 7-seater SUV. Now, before you say it, the 8 is not simply a stretched version of the 7 to incorporate those extra 2 seats. It is its own individual model in the lineup, and the same goes with the styling. Now, yes, we have got the Chery grille up front with the little diamond chrome inserts. Again, yes, I can see that kind of Audi resemblance there, and also in the headlight design. But when I look at kind of the overall shape, I do get a kind of hint of KGM Rexton in that kind of 7-seater classic SUV design. And again, just like the 7, at the back of the 8, we have got a very distinctive rear with that tail light design. I will say as well, when it comes to the kind of headlight cluster, it is different with the ICE version than it is on this plug-in hybrid. I actually prefer the look of the ICE version when it comes to the daytime running lights. There is this kind of signature tick, which is what you get in the badge. But do you know what? I do think as well that the hybrid version still has its own distinctive look. But personally, yeah, I do love the look and the styling of the ICE version a little bit more. But again, you let me know what you think of the 8 styling in the comments section below. Now, I do think we need to look at the inside of the Tiggo 8, because that's where the main differences are if you were to kind of compare this with the 7 when it comes to interior design, but also where the Tiggo 8 has a more premium feel to it. Sat in the front of the Tiggo 8, you are greeted with a very spacious, comfortable and well-equipped interior, just like the 7. But unlike the 7, this definitely feels like a much more premium place to be. Just the kind of air of quality and the materials involved with the interior just look to be a step up. So again, that's another reason why you can't really say that the 8 is a stretched version of the 7. This definitely feels like its own model in the lineup, and it does feel like a much more luxurious car. Now, when it comes to getting in and out of the 8, it is actually really easy, because again, the doors open nice and wide and you have got that raised seated position. Now, we don't have a grab handle here for the driver, unlike the 7 where we had a little storage for your glasses, but we have got a grab handle for the front passenger. And then once you sat in the front seat, you find that the seats themselves, they are very comfortable. We actually have like an Alcantara mixed with the kind of vegan leather here, and it does feel very premium and comfortable. I have got electric adjustment on the driver's seat, along with electrically adjustable lumbar support, and my front passenger on this Summit trim also has electric adjustment, so that is actually a nice bonus there. And then when it comes to the steering wheel, we have again got both rake and reach adjustment, so getting the perfect driving position is easy. And then, like I said, the kind of upgrade in materials for the interior, it definitely feels much more premium. So we have got, again, this kind of vegan leather here on top of the dash. It doesn't feel like soft touch plastic. We've got it on top of the doors as well, with a bit of kind of leatherette here on the door cards, also on the side here of the center console, but a little bit lower down, again, just like the 7. There is a bit of hard scratchy plastic to rest your leg against, but it's not uncomfortable. In fact, there is a percentage for the amount of soft touch plastics there are for the interior of the 8, and it is 78.9. That is really specific, but it shows that kind of Chery are being very kind of aware of how they want their cars to appear premium to their buyers. So having all these kind of touch points where it's soft touch plastic is definitely a bonus, and like I said, it definitely gives a really nice upmarket feel to it. So yeah, first impressions when you sit here in the Tiggo 8 are, yeah, really positive. This does feel like a step up from the 7. Cubby spaces in the 8 are actually pretty good, kind of on a par with what we saw in the 7, but there is a little bit of an adjustment in regards to the design of the cabin compared to that smaller car. So when it comes to the door pockets, again, they're of a pretty decent size. You can get a medium-sized bottle of drink in there, but they're not lined with any fabric or rubber, so loose items, again, will rattle around a bit. Now here on top of the center console up front, we have got 2 little pads here. They are kind of lined with felt, but one of them is your wireless charging pad. The other is just somewhere you can rest your phone, and you can tell that because there's a little vent there to do cooling whilst your phone is charging. So I do like that feature, and we are starting to see it kind of appear in more and more cars, so that is a bonus. We have got your 2 cup holders here. As you can see, they are filled with cans, and again, if I take the can out, it is rubber lined, and we have got some plastic grippers there to hold your water in place, or your coffee cup, which is very lovely. Again, under the armrest, which is actually split this time, it doesn't lift up. When we open it up, we have got a bit of extra storage. Again, we've got air conditioning in here as well, and it is lined with rubber, and it is a decent amount of storage. As you can see, I can kind of, well, not go all the way to my elbow because that door's in the way, but there is a good depth there to the underarm storage. And then we have got a bit of under storage here with the floating center console. Now, unlike the 7, this is actually rubber lined, which is very handy, and there's no little hammer there for the safety part of it, so you can actually use that whole space. The only thing that's a bit disappointing is that the USB-A and USB-C charging inputs are on this side. So if you are looking to connect up your phone using Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, granted it is wireless, but I'm not sure if you have to do it tethered first to connect, or if you can just do it via Bluetooth. You just have to connect on that side, so that can be a little bit fiddly, especially if you're reaching over this floating center console. And then finally, we have got the glove box, which is of an okay size and shape. I think it's a little bit bigger than the 7, although I think it might be just kind of on a par. Some rivals out there do have larger storage, and again, not lined with any rubber or fabric, so loose items will make some noise, but there is no book pack in there, so yeah, you can actually use all of that space. And then I think that's kind of everything. I was kind of expecting somewhere to put my sunglasses because I couldn't put them up here, but there's no storage underneath here because that's all the controls for the sunroof. So that's a little bit disappointing that the 7 has that, but I don't have it in the 8. But you know what? It makes up for it by having more space under the tray area there of the floating center console. Now, just like the Tiggo 7, in the 8 we have got a nice mixture of physical, touch sensitive, as well as controls done via the infotainment system. But compared to the 7, yeah, there are a few changes. So starting off with physical controls here on the center console, we got a big rocker switch for your drive mode select. We got a button for your hazard lights, as well as another rocker switch for going from EV to hybrid mode. Then we got 4 physical buttons here to go from putting on the aircon, auto air conditioning, along with your front and rear demisting. Now here on the steering wheel, we're going to start at the front, where on the left hand side we have got your radar guided cruise controls, along with a button that you can assign via the infotainment screen as more of a shortcut button. And then on the right hand side we have got your voice and media controls, along with another control to go through the driver data menu display. And then what we have got on the steering column is on the stalk on the left hand side. These are the controls for your wipers, both front and rear, and that's because we don't have a big physical gear selector here like we do on the 7. It's actually on the right hand side of the steering column, so it does give that kind of upmarket feel by having a clean design to the center console, but also kind of like a Mercedes-Benz, we have got the gear selector there on the right hand side of the steering column, so it kind of gives that, yeah, more upmarket feel to the 8. And then on the right hand side we've actually got the controls for the lights, so they're not done via the infotainment screen, so I do like that. It's a big rocker switch. And then we've got a couple of buttons, one to open up the boot and the other to open the petrol filler cap. And just like on the 7, when it comes to doing the plug-in, we have got DC charging, but that's a manual opening only. So yeah, when it comes to the kind of the physical controls in here, on the 8, it is a little bit more upmarket in terms of design compared to the 7, but you're probably noticing I've missed something out, which is the touch sensitive controls that were kind of here on the 7 to do the dual zone climate control. No, if you want to do that here in the 8, you have to kind of lift up on the bottom of the screen, tap on the little fan, and we've got a big screen here to do the dual zone climate control, as well as doing things like your heated and ventilated seats. But yeah, when it comes to the dual zone climate control, you have to do it via the main infotainment screen. So speaking of that infotainment screen, it is much larger than what you get on the 7. And as you can see, it's actually 2 different screens kind of set up. They're not kind of linked together in one big bar. So I'm going to start with the digital driver display because it's actually a bit smaller than what you get in the 7. It's actually 10.25 inches, but the layout appears to be pretty much the same. However, I don't have analog dials on the sides of the display. They're more like digital dials there, so it has that kind of more modern feel to it. But like I said, going through the right hand side button on the steering wheel, you can go through the various menus. It looks to be very clear and nicely presented. I will say I've not yet been for a drive in the 8. I'm actually doing it now in reverse or proper order when I'm filming, but everything looks to be absolutely fine. And then we move on to the main infotainment screen. So as I mentioned, it is larger than what you get in the 7. It's actually 15.6 inches. Now, you probably expected me to say it will twist from landscape to portrait just like a BYD. No, it doesn't. But you have got Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and they're wireless as well. And what I'm loving is that the Apple CarPlay is taking up the entire screen. So if you do need to do any kind of shortcuts or anything, you can either go to the main menu and then kind of work your way through to the Chery or the main infotainment system like I've got here. Got a lovely backdrop of some mountains there, probably in kind of Asia, I think, or somewhere like that. But then you've got your shortcuts at the bottom. Like I said, we've got your controls for the dual zone climate control. You've got a little shortcut to go straight to the maps, so the navigation. I think on the left that is to do, that's your media, so that's all set there. We got your seats, so even your front passenger can have massaging seats. They've also got a kind of captain's chair, so they can actually stretch out on a long drive. And then we've got things like your home button, and there is an apps button where you can kind of go through all the various menus. But what I'm liking is that the actual icons themselves are actually of a decent size, so it should be nice and easy to kind of go through them whilst you're driving. However, with something like this, it's definitely more of a case of setup before you set off. So yeah, when it comes to the kind of interior of the front of the 8, it's actually really nice and comfortable. It's a lovely, pleasant place to be, and yeah, it definitely feels much more upmarket compared to the 7. But on that note, I will say we'll leave the front seats here of the 8, and we will see what it's like for the middle row. Now, I will say, because I haven't got too much time with the car, we won't look at the 3rd row just yet. I might have to twist the arm of the guys here at Chery to see if we can get a 8 for a proper loan, okay, as this is a first drive. Sat in the middle row of the Tiggo 8, it's actually pretty spacious and comfortable back here, but I will say I think the 7 has a bit more knee room, because this does feel quite far back, but I'm not sure if the seat is actually moved back in terms of kind of comfort, entry and exit. Now, just like the front, when it comes to getting in and out of the Tiggo 8, it is really easy because the doors open nice and wide. The aperture as well for the doors is really large, so if you do suffer from any kind of mobility issues, it should be really easy to get in and out of this car. And you've also got a couple of grab handles to help you out there. And then the seats themselves are very comfortable. Again, we've got this kind of vegan leather here, but they should be absolutely lovely to be in for a medium or perhaps even a long distance journey, and you should be able to arrive at your destination feeling refreshed and relaxed. Now, when it comes to space, that driver's seat should be set to my driving position. I'm 5'7" tall and 5'7" wide, and as you can see, yeah, knee room is a little bit limited. I can, however, get my feet comfortably underneath the driver's seat, and again, just like the 7, headroom is actually really good. So yeah, I do think a couple of 6-footers will be comfortable in the back of the Tiggo 8, but I will say, probably again like the 7, I wouldn't try and get 3 adults because this middle seat is quite narrow, even though there's hardly any transmission tunnel to navigate over, but you could easily get 3 kids. Now, speaking of kids, we have got ISOFIX supports on the outer seats. We have got plastic covers on them, which just lift up to expose the ISOFIX bar. So that's really lovely. I was thinking for a second that that was going to be removable. Chery have definitely been smart with that. So you just lift it up. So that's really handy. And then when it comes to storage, I'm going to say it's not too bad. We've got some decent sized door pockets. Again, you can get a medium sized bottle of drink in there. We got our airplane style pockets on the backs of the front seats. We got another little tray area just behind here where you can perhaps put your phone for a charging, but unlike the 7, it's not rubber lined. And then we have got your center armrest, which has got a couple of cup holders, which is, that's actually lined with rubber. That feels really nice. And they've got some plastic grippers in there, some proper ones as well. So that's actually really cool. And then when it comes to features, so we have got a couple of air vents, we've got heated outer seats, we have got a USB-A and a USB-C charging input, and as I mentioned, we have got that little area there that you can store your phone. Now, when it comes to the seats themselves, you can slide them forward and back. However, yeah, if I'm going to slide it forward, my knees are going to go straight into that seat. I will also mention I have got the controls here for the front passenger seat, so I can move them if I need to in order to kind of create a bit of extra space if I've got a child back here. Something I do like as well is that you can put the front passenger seat all the way down, so you can actually have a massive load area if perhaps you need to load maybe a couple of surfboards or something. So that's actually very unique, and definitely for this type of car, and will definitely kind of appeal to those who have a very active lifestyle. And then we've got things like the windows, which are absolutely massive. They are tinted as well. And in regards to opening, just like the 7, they go about 95% of the way down. But unlike the 7, there's no drop in quality. We have still got your vegan leather here on top of the doors, and then we got a bit of leatherette here on the door cards themselves. So yeah, being sat here in the middle row of the 8, it's actually very nice and comfortable. I do think the 7 has a bit more space, and yeah, it's just absolutely lovely. I do think a couple of 6-footers will be sat back here in comfort. Now granted, yes, I have put kind of half the shade back. I need to put it all the way, but also that actual aperture is massive as well. So everyone here in the 8 is going to get a lot of light coming through. Now, like I said, because I haven't got too much time with the car, I'm not going to sit in the 3rd row. We'll try and get the car for a full review, but let's have a quick look at the boot and then go for a drive. Now, opening the boot of the Tiggo 8 presents you with all 7 seats in place, around 117 litres, which doesn't sound like much, but it should be enough to get perhaps a couple of small bags in there with all the 7 seats in place. So at least you got a little bit of storage there to put a couple of items. Now I haven't got all 7 seats up. I've actually got it in 5-seat configuration. But what I am liking is that there is a little bit of an area here where I know I could perhaps put maybe a carry-on or a weekend bag there, and it should be absolutely fine. Now if you do put the rear seats down, so you make it a 5-seater, the boot capacity does grow to around 494 litres, which is not too bad, but when you compare it to some of the big boys, yeah, they do have larger boot capacities. Now I am seeing here with all 7 seats in place, you will have a couple of cup holders for the rearmost passengers, plus a little bit of space to perhaps put your phone, but we've got nothing like a USB-C or any kind of charging inputs or controls or vents from the air conditioning. So that's just something to be aware of with the 3rd row. But don't forget, thinking of the price of this car, yeah, it is massively competitive and it's a huge amount of value for money. Now, when it comes to features here in the back of the Tiggo 8, it's actually not too bad. We have got some tethering hooks. We have got a 12-volt socket as well, a couple of clips so you can keep your seat belts tied back. We have got 2 positions where we can put the tonneau cover, so it does mean you can recline the middle row seats further back, so anyone wanting to perhaps have a bit of a kip on a long journey, they will be able to do so. And then we have got this bit of boot floor here. Now if I lift it up, okay, it is taken up with the hybrid batteries and everything, so it does look like you won't be able to put the tonneau cover underneath the boot floor. So that's a little bit disappointing. You will need to leave it at home if you want to put the rear 5 seats down and turn this into a bit of a kind of minivan for any large bulky items. So yeah, when it comes to the kind of capacity and space, when compared to some of its bigger rivals, yeah, it kind of lags a little bit behind. However, the price point of this car means it's incredibly competitive. You get an awful lot of metal for your money, and it should be absolutely fine for kids sat in the back there. But on that note, like I said, we haven't got too long with the car. Let's get the boot down and take the Tiggo 8 out on the road. Okay, so we're now in the Tiggo 8, and the reason I'm kind of starting my filming now, where I'm still within the kind of confines of the launch event, is because I've got very little time with the car. I need to do my gimbal stuff and everything that kind of goes on behind the scenes when you're filming. So, first impressions. With this being the plug-in hybrid, like I experienced with the 7, this feels very lovely. Now, what's going on with the, let's recenter, there we go. So first thing, yeah, it's very, very comfortable. It's got this nice wafty feeling to it. The indicators are very different to the 7. These are very loud. That's a very weird bingy bongy noise. That's, yeah, very unique. And the noise as well, it's coming from down below. But that's very weird. Now, something else that you guys haven't heard yet, but I've left it on for now, is the sat-nav speaker, because I'm using Google Maps because they've set a route in for me, but the speakers are in the headrest, so it doesn't come from the front, it comes from behind. But I want to get you guys to hear it, because you might, I don't know, I think this is being recorded in some type of stereo, but you might be able to hear that voice behind me. But just like the 7, you can tell that the 8 has been set up
normal mode
to be a very comfortable car. Sorry, the car was set up in sport mode. Put it into normal mode so we can get that kind of normal everyday feel. There is eco mode as well, just like on the 7. But as we kind of get going, the one thing I'm noticing is it doesn't feel like a large, massive 7-seater SUV like a Hyundai Santa Fe. That is definitely a much larger car. But I think a lot of people might want to look at the 8, but keep it as a 5-seater, keep those rear seats down and just make use of the 500 litres of boot space there, or just shy of. Because what you then have is a much more upmarket car compared to the 7 with the largest screen. And then you've got things like a head-up display as well. But this feels very much like the 7 in terms of it feels like it's meant to be a very comfortable SUV rather than a sporty one. Visibility as well is different compared to the 7. Now again, I have got that raised seated position, so I have got a lovely commanding view of the road ahead, so I got a wonderful view up front. I can't quite, again, like the 7, judge where the front of the car is because of that sloping bonnet. Again, I think we have got front and rear parking sensors as standard. The A-pillars are thick and chunky, but they don't feel as thick and chunky as they are on the 7, and I don't think I'm going to have any issues looking around them at any junctions. They seem to be in a nice position there. The wing mirrors are of a lovely shape and size. I actually think they're a tiny bit smaller than the 7, but I do like the shape of them, and again, I have got blind spot monitoring. Now, 2 things. So the first one is the rear view mirror. It is bloody massive. That is very wide. And as a result as well, it's what's the word? Is it concave? Or I think it's convex, because I've got a wide field of view there where I can actually see the headrest of the passenger seat. So I can see everyone that's in the car. That's very unique, because usually what you get is like a second little mirror that you can kind of get here in your glasses case holder. But because we haven't got one, we've got this rear view mirror. So that is very unique, and it takes a few seconds to get used to. Now, when I look over my shoulder, the one thing I do like...
yards, turn left onto B4203.
There you go. There's the sat-nav. So she's coming through the headrest speakers there. I'm now going to switch her off, so she's not going to be a distraction for you. So when I look over my shoulder, again, just like the 7, we haven't got the thickest of C-pillars, but where it is thick is actually where it kind of goes into the boot area, but it hasn't created too much of a blind spot. And what's really weird is I can just look in the rear view mirror and I can see out of the windows in the C-pillar. That's bonkers. Yeah, that is very, very unique. That's a weird kind of distraction, that is.
High voltage battery level low.
Oh, thank you very much.
Smart power saving
Will
mode.
do. So, yeah, so that's the kind of weird thing with that rear view mirror. But yeah, I haven't got the thickest of blind spots really, or C-pillars. It's just more in the boot area. So just like the 7, as a result, the actual rear screen, it's not the largest of rear screens, but I've got no real obstructions from the headrests, which is a bonus. And I can see very well behind me. And like I said, you do get things like front and rear parking sensors with this Summit trim. I have got the 540 degree cameras. I will put the correct number at the bottom of the screen for you now. But yeah, first impressions, just like the 7, is that this feels like it's meant to be a big, comfortable family SUV. It's refined as well. It's ticking all those boxes. Chery are really good at kind of just, yeah, you're making a very premium feeling SUV, but not for a premium amount of money. So first impressions again, yeah, very positive. Now, just like the 7, there are 2 trim levels to choose from. There is the entry-level Aspire and this top-of-the-range Summit. And you can tell straight away I'm in the Summit because I have got the sunroof, just like on the 7. And I'm going to say the same thing. Look at the Aspire, because in terms of standard equipment, it is really well spec'd out. It's just when you go on to the Summit, you get those extra niceties that you want, those extra creature comforts. Like I've got the massaging seats, I've got heated and ventilated seats as well. I've got the 512 degree camera. I've got the sunroof as well, and it takes up, actually let's get the whole thing open. It takes up pretty much 2/3 of the roof area, so you get a lot of light coming into the car. Yeah, I've got no issues whatsoever in kind of saying, have a look at a PCP deal and see what the kind of difference is monthly between the Aspire and the Summit, because again, you get a huge amount of metal for your money. And I do believe this is the cheapest plug-in 7-seater you can buy in the UK. So there are some kind of key things here in regards to these type of cars. When it comes to value, you do get an awful lot of metal for your money. I'm loving that noise. I keep feeling I'm going to kind of like bounce around and that. Now, when it comes to powering the Tiggo 8, it's pretty much exactly the same as the 7. So we have got 2 versions available. There's an ICE version and a plug-in hybrid. So with the ICE version, you get the 1.6 litre turbocharged petrol. With the plug-in hybrid, it's a 1.5 litre. Again, I will put all the kind of facts and figures on screen now for you to compare, but I do believe they are pretty much the same as the 7. So a couple of the key facts you need to know is in regards to full EV range, you have got around 56 miles, same as the 7. When it comes to actual range, and this is a big number for the car, it's the same as the 7. It's 750 miles claimed range. And again, with a car like this, it's very much in the kind of same realm as the Omoda 9, because that's a large 7-seater SUV, but you've got the range there, you've got these kind of figures which is just absolutely mad. However, I think in the Omoda 9 you do have more electric range, but I will kind of double check that for you because I've not driven the 9 as of yet. But the other key figure I'm going to mention actually as well, I mentioned this about the 7, I'm just reminding you, it's the 7-year 100,000 mile warranty, which is definitely a highlight to this car and is very competitive. Like I said, you're going up against the likes of Kia. You're going up with Dacia as well, where they do their service routine. So every time you take it for a service, it'll do it for 7 years. And then you've got the likes of Toyota and Lexus, which have their 10-year one, which is class leading. But if you want the equivalent cars, you're going to have to pay much more money. So yeah, in terms of powertrains, it's exactly the same as the 7. But also, I will mention that when it comes to brake regeneration, we've got 3 levels to choose from: weak, medium and strong. And basically, yeah, when it's got kind of medium brake regeneration, you got a little bit there. It's not one pedal driving because this is a plug-in hybrid, but it should be enough to kind of eke out a few extra yards when you start braking or when you take your foot off the accelerator in your Tiggo 7 or 8. So yeah, you're not going to have full one pedal driving, but you have got the choice to change the speed how you so want it. Did I say speed? I meant strength. So what about the Tiggo 8's ride and refinement? Well, just like the 7, it doesn't take long to realise that this car has been set up to be a really lovely and relaxing cruiser. It's just meant to be a lovely, comfortable family SUV, so it just wafts along. But it does deal with the bumps and imperfections really well. Some of them you can kind of feel and just get a little bit of a boom come into the cabin, but it's not uncomfortable because these seats do an amazing job of taking a lot of the vibration away from the outside, just like on the 7. One thing you can have with your front passenger is that they can have a massaging seat, so they can really relax whilst you're driving. Now, I would like to see the driver have some massaging seats as well, because that's definitely something that I would appreciate on a long journey. But unlike the 7, I should say, I have got adjustable lumbar support, so that's one kind of bonus there over the 7. But yeah, I'd like to have those massaging seats. Why does my front passenger get to have all the fun? But when you're driving along, yeah, it's a wonderful cruiser. I can imagine this just eating up the miles on the motorway, but I do know then that the trade-off is going to be in handling, because this isn't going to be a sporty or kind of rewarding drive in that sense. This is, like I said, designed to be lovely and comfortable and just waft along. And then when it comes to refinement, I do think there's a little bit more tyre roar coming into the cabin than I got on the 7. But with noise, actually, I can barely hear anything coming off the A-pillars or the wing mirrors, considering the fact they actually are of a large size. But just like the 7, we have got the kind of double glazed windows there, so that is a nice bonus. So yeah, when it comes to that ride and refinement, it's a really lovely, comfortable place to be, because as well I have got the Summit, I've got the upgraded sound system, so I have got speakers in the headrests. I don't know what the quality is like. I can just tell you that the lady from Google Maps, she sounds very clear in my ear. But again, I can imagine having one of these for a proper review and putting on some of my tunes and listening through the speakers and getting a really lovely kind of audio response from it, because it is a Sony system as well, so it's not like it's not a very decent brand. So that is another highlight on the Tiggo 8 and also on the 7. So what about the Tiggo 8's handling? Well, just like the 7, it is where you got that trade-off with the ride, so it is a little bit rolly and leany in the corners. So like I said, it's not going to be as rewarding as something like, well, it wouldn't be a Seat Ateca, but say a Seat Tarraco, which is their 7-seater. That's going to have a more dynamic and rewarding drive to it if you put the effort in the corners. Again, with the steering, there is this kind of, I don't know, there's a unique kind of numbness there, where I'm not kind of getting that feedback that you would get from other cars. But again, it's something that you will be absolutely fine with for everyday travel. It's light enough to make parking the Tiggo 8 an absolute doddle to park in a multi-story, but there's a little bit of weight in there to help you out when you're just driving about day to day. However, like I said, you don't get that kind of feedback there that you do from other cars. But again, like the 7, I do like the size and thickness of the steering wheel. Feels very lovely in my hands, and yeah, it's just absolutely fine for day-to-day driving. Like I said, it just hasn't got that dynamic feel. There is a little bit of weight there, but it just doesn't have that feedback that you would get from what will be more expensive rivals. But like I said, for day-to-day driving, you'll have no issues whatsoever. It's absolutely fine for every day. So what are my thoughts on the Chery Tiggo 8 here on its UK media launch? Well, the first thing is, I'm not going to say that this is a stretched version of the 7. This definitely feels like its own kind of individual car, and it feels much more upmarket, especially down to the larger screen and the kind of use of soft touch plastics throughout the cabin. They just feel of a nicer quality. And just like the 7, you get a huge amount of metal for your money, especially when it comes down to things like standard equipment. This is a genuine highlight to the car, and I think loads of people are going to be impressed. And it's something that we have seen with other Chinese, manufacturers, with the likes of JQ, with the likes of Omoda, with the likes of BYD. They just offer huge amounts of metal for your money, and no longer has the likes of MG with the ZS and the HS been able to dominate anymore. They are going to have the most serious and proper competition they've had in a long time, because there are now products out there which have this air of quality about them and just feel much more upmarket. Yeah, it's a really, really lovely car, the 8, and I can imagine people going for this over the 7, paying the premium for the premium quality feel, but just putting the rear seats down, just having it as a 5-seater and just using it as a normal car, just so they have that more upmarket feel with the interior, with the larger screen. And I'll be honest, that's something I would probably want to do. I mean, the 7 is lovely, but this feels much more special. Now, granted, it's not all perfect. I know I've been singing the car's praises, but just like the 7, it has got those 2 weaknesses, which are the kind of driving dynamics, the handling, and the boot capacity. And that's, again, another reason why I do think some people will go for the 8 and just use it as a 5-seater. And granted, yes, you can use it as a 7-seater if needs must, but you'll spend your time just using it as a 5-seater and as a regular car and just enjoying the extra kind of premium feel to the 8 over the 7. But like I said, you get a huge amount of metal for your money, especially when it comes to equipment. It looks good. I think it's got enough to stand out. I think it's got enough value in it as well, in regards to kind of what you get. And then you got things like the range, up to 750 miles. You got the warranty, 7 years. I mean, what else is there to like? For this kind of cost, I would be expecting a car much smaller and with much less kit. This is, I think, the reason why a lot of people are saying, and I kind of agree, that a lot of manufacturers need to be worried about what China is bringing out, because, yeah, in terms of value, there's an awful lot of metal for your money. I know I've said that phrase so many times, but in a world where a cost of living crisis is kind of still here, it's still affecting us, value is the name of the game, and the Chinese brands are offering it in spades. So everyone, I hope you have enjoyed my first drive impressions of the new Chery Tiggo 7 and 8 here on its UK media launch. I'm just testing the soft roading capabilities of the car. They're front wheel drive only. I did forget to mention that, so I will put it in one of the information blocks a little bit earlier in the video. But as always, don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe, and hit that bell notifications icon to let you know when I, Dave the Auto Bear, bring out a new video. Of course, don't forget to follow on the likes of Instagram, Facebook and X for additional content. But yeah, I've been very, very impressed with the cars here from Chery. They are huge amounts of value for money. I'm just now looking at the, oh, we can move that around. Just looking at the 3D camera there of the car. If I tap on it, it will take me to it and I can go around. There we go. And yeah, if you've got any comments about or questions about the cars and my time with them, please put them down in the comment section below. But in the meantime, I will hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll catch you all in the next video. So take care, everybody, and bye-bye.